If you examine modern prophetic movements, you will notice a distinct evolution. The days of interpreting the end times exclusively through a single text, like the Book of Revelation, are fading. Instead, today's most sophisticated eschatologies are highly syncretic, merging entirely distinct ancient traditions together into complex, multi-layered systems. A prime example of this new architectural approach is a framework we will refer to as the prophetic nexus. This specific system constructs its narrative by interlocking three seemingly incompatible pillars: the apocalyptic visions of Western revelation, the deep-time planetary cycles of Vedic Jyotish astrology, and the precise orbital measurements of modern celestial mechanics. The architects of this framework do not ask you to rely on faith. Instead, they have engineered a fully deterministic mathematical machine where celestial data points are used to calculate earthly outcomes. To understand why a system like this exerts such immense sociological power over its adherents, we need to temporarily set aside theological debates. We are going to strictly deconstruct the internal mathematical logic of the engine itself. This chart is the master chronology. It is the definitive output of the entire esoteric engine, projecting global transitions out to the year 2044. The timeline establishes a foundational premise, charting an ideological preparation phase starting in 2012 and concluding in 2019. From there, the framework defines our current global era. It categorizes the window between 2025 and 2033 as the seventh seal, a period characterized by extreme global shaking and instability. An abstract future projection requires concrete proof. The timeline anchors itself by claiming to mathematically predict specific, recent historical events, primarily the onset of modern warfare in Eastern Europe in February 2022. The entire validity of these massive future projections hinges on a single factor: how successfully the framework uses complex mathematics to retroactively lock these present-day events into its timeline. For an esoteric timeline to feel real to its followers, it cannot remain abstract. It must connect its prophecies to highly visible, easily verifiable geopolitical targets in the present. This flowchart illustrates exactly how the framework identifies a specific geopolitical target for the biblical beast identity. The operation begins by translating the infamous number of the beast, 666, into its Roman numeral equivalent, D, C, L, X, V, and I. Next comes a geographic isolation step. The letters D and C are extracted from the sequence and assigned to represent the District of Columbia. This leaves the remaining letters, L, X, V, and I. The author intentionally discards standard Roman numeral reading rules. Instead, the formula selectively adds and subtracts the numerical values, 50, minus 10, plus 5, plus 1. This manipulated equation yields a result of 46. When paired with the extracted geographic locus of DC, the prophecy locks tightly onto the 46th President of the United States, cementing the current Commander-in-Chief directly into the eschatological timeline. This specific operation demonstrates the mechanics of post hoc numerology. The author subordinates standard mathematical rules to arrive at a predetermined political target. Moving from domestic U.S. politics to the theater of global conflict, the framework requires a second mathematical anchor. This diagram illustrates the framework's literalized interpretation of Revelation chapter 12, specifically the verse describing a dragon whose tail sweeps away a third part of the stars. To ground this imagery in numerical reality, the system takes a standard 365 days solar year and divides it by 3. This derives a drag metric of 121 days. It then subtracts that metric from the full year, resulting in a requirement of 244 days of chronological backward travel. The framework establishes an origin point for this measurement using a highly visible celestial event, the total solar eclipse of October 25, 2022. By tracing backwards exactly 244 days from that eclipse, the dial lands precisely on February 24, 2022. By retrofitting an eclipse timeline backwards to match the exact historical onset of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the engine creates a highly convincing illusion of predictive inevitability. Beyond raw numerical equations, the engine builds authority through the structural synthesis of disparate world mythologies. Look at how the system constructs its unified architecture. Elements from the Western Book of Revelation are directly mapped onto Eastern Vedic astrology. The biblical red dragon, for instance, becomes the Vedic shadow planet known as Rahu. But the framework goes a step further, moving out of the realm of metaphor and attempting to physicalize these mythological entities using modern orbital mechanics. This orbital diagram assigns a precise astronomical coordinate to this synthesized dragon-Rahu entity, the L2 Lagrange point, positioned in the shadow of Earth. According to the framework's logic, this Lagrange point operates as an unstable portal, constantly channeling what Vedic traditions call tamasic, or chaotic energy down to Earth. This chaotic energetic source is then layered directly over modern geopolitics. The system applies an 18-year Vedic planetary cycle to assert that the United States is currently enduring a Rahu Mahadasha, a period gripped by this specific destructive influence from 2015 to 2033. The final piece of this structural synthesis relies on linguistic wordplay to cement the United States as the host of this chaotic force. This flowchart details the Mobius equation. The framework deconstructs the term Mobius, famously used in the prophecies of Nostradamus. It isolates the first syllable, Mab, associating it with an ancient Celtic goddess of aggressive war energy. This divine entity is then combined with the final two letters, US, explicitly representing the United States. The ultimate conclusion drawn by the framework is that the United States is operating as a deterministic physical host for this destructive divine war energy. By continuously layering astronomical points, Vedic planetary cycles, and medieval linguistic deconstruction, the framework successfully constructs a completely unassailable, non-human explanation for modern geopolitical friction. With its mathematical anchors securely fastened to recent historical and political events, the engine is fully primed to project future certainties. Returning to the master chronology, we can identify the framework's next major predicted geopolitical and geological event node, centered around the year 2026. This chart cites verifiable astronomical triggers for these impending events, pointing to an alignment of eclipses in early 2026. The resulting output is categorized as severe water calamities. The framework labels this era the filter, an environmental bottleneck designed to test spiritual resilience. The sociological utility of this prediction is clear. Utilizing the threat of impending topological and environmental destruction enforces strict internal cohesion and ideological loyalty among the framework's adherents. Eventually, the engine's timeline moves past this period of destruction, resolving into an ultimate eschatological payoff. This slide details the framework's radical reinterpretation of a classic theological concept, the 144,000 saved souls from the Book of Revelation. Instead of a literal human head count, the figure is converted through a mathematical equation into a measurement of time. 144,000 divided by 360 yields exactly 400 prophetic years, representing the length of a new golden era. The stated cause of this impending era of light is an accelerated phase of the planet Jupiter, an 8-year megacycle scheduled to trigger between 2036 and 2044. Observing the complete architecture, we see how every disparate astronomical measurement, linguistic fragment, and historical date has been engineered to serve a single, unified narrative. The prophetic nexus operates as a highly sophisticated cognitive coping mechanism. It is an engine designed exclusively to absorb the terrifying, random chaos of the modern world and reprocess it into absolute, mathematically ordered meaning.